How you doing, folks? This is Ron Grovis from Ron's Beers. I got a beer to showcase today. SCHLITZ, the brand that's world renowned. Here's the belt around the globe, one of their logos. And everybody probably knows about SCHLITZ, and there's probably hundreds of reviews on YouTube. But I felt I wanted to do it. I don't see other reviews first. I just do this first, and then I will probably eventually look at the other reviewers and see how many there are. But this is the beer. Familiar cap, familiar label. SCHLITZ. Now this was started by an August Krug, K-R-U-G, a German immigrant. He put in the paperwork to come to America. He wanted to build a brewery here. And brew beer in the United States was open ground, which was really ripe for breweries. And he immigrated from Germany, got everything, his paperwork and so forth, to come to the United States and become an immigrant. And he began brewing beer in Milwaukee. And he was very successful at it. Things took off. So in 1850, another gentleman that immigrated to the Milwaukee area was a 20-year-old accountant named Joseph SCHLITZ. And that was in 1850. And he got hired by Mr. Krug to be his accountant to do the brewery bookkeeping, and he was very good at working. That he also let him run the restaurant he had. He owned the restaurant. At that time, in 1853, they were producing 300 barrels of beer, and that was really something. 300 barrels. You just had started a few years earlier. Well, anyways, in 1856, Mr. Krug passed away, and that left Joseph SCHLITZ, the youngster there, becoming the owner of the company. And how that came about is he married the widow of Mr. Krug. And so he renamed it the Joseph SCHLITZ Brewing Company in 1874. And that wasn't bad, because the company was doing real well, and he was a good worker, and he stayed with it. But what happened was, a year later, he died. Joseph SCHLITZ died in a shipwreck. But the name lived on, and the brewery prospered. SCHLITZ became known as Milwaukee's premier beer after the 1870 fire that devastated Chicago. The blaze destroyed the city breweries and everything that was pretty well in Chicago. But SCHLITZ, the gentlemen that were running that company, the brewmasters and the workers and the owners, were good people. And what they did, they basically sent out as much beer as they could, hundreds of cases, and kegs, actually, in kegs. And but he filled the voids by establishing 2,000 taverns, saloons, and other retail locations between Milwaukee and Chicago. It gave the folks in Chicago and in that area easier access to beer. Beer was a pretty big thing that in the taverns and the saloons. America was growing, and beer was truly a drink of choice, really. So what I'd say is the name that made Milwaukee famous was SCHLITZ. Because of that is how that slogan came. It first appeared, actually, the ad around 1893. But then they used that belted globe, which is their logo, which was introduced in 1886. So there's a lot of history with this company. I mean, later on you'll find out what I mean by the history of it going around. So with that said about them sending all that hundreds of barrels of beer, and that ended up making the slogan, the beer that made Milwaukee famous, pretty well. And then in 1902, they had sold over 1 million barrels of beer. And then it became the largest brewery in the world at that time, 1902. Well advertised. It was a well-advertised company, well in the hands of people that were running it and working there. 1911, they introduced this brown bottle in 1911. Up to then, beer was in clear glass. I have an old Harvard beer bottle from 1902, and it's clear glass, and it was embossed. There was no labels on it. In 1903 or 1904, they started putting colored wording on the bottles, which were clear glass at the time. And up until then, it was all clear until SCHLITZ came up with the brown bottles. We move up to 1970, In 1970, the business was so well through the 70s. Late 69, 68, 69, all the way through the 70s. Schlitz was phenomenal with concerts and people partying and anything going on where a lot of beer was being consumed. And with that said, they built a 34-acre brewery in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And that was producing 4.4 million barrels annually. They're producing that. That's in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I'd love to go down and see that place. And hopefully someday, before the sun shines out of my life, I'd like to go there and see that brewery. It'd be really nice to see. 1980, Stroh's kind of buys the brewery. I know, after all those big years they had, and Stroh buys it. 1999, Pabst Blue Ribbon acquired the Schlitz name from Stroh's. And things were starting to really change with the name disappearing. 2007, Schlitz, basically, somebody correction. They brought about the recipe. They reincarnated the recipe. They had gotten the folks that knew the recipe from the 60s. 60s being a very popular year for this beer, very popular. And they got together the right people and the folks that knew about the recipe, and they reintroduced it in 2007. This style is actually a pale lager with 4.6 ABV. That's the percentage of the alcohol, and that's 4.6. The calories, 138. I don't have anything on the hops on this. Couldn't find anything. What kind they use, or what the IBU is. But one of the famous ads from 1942 is when it started. It was just the kiss of the hops. That meant, evidently, they just slightly put some hops in this, so there's no bitterness. So they call it just the kiss of the hops. And all their advertisements from 1942 on, there's a female model, pretty lady. They use a pretty lady, and she's got red lipstick on, and she's kind of just about kissing a hop. It was one of the advertisements. So it's called Kiss of the Hops, and the beer that made Milwaukee famous. So, with no further ado, let's excuse me, get a can. We got a glass, and it's very able glass to use. Schlitz lager glass, very nice glass to use. An old church key. We get the church key here. So, no further ado, some water vapors come out. I'll give it a pour. Maybe a little aggressive on the angle. And there it is. Gee, that's a good looking beer. Plenty of carbonation. Let's get it over here. See the carbonation. It's a pale lager. People can see through it. It's very light. These lagers were at that time. That recipe they use. Got the drone up. Consistent bubbles. A few big ones. You can see the carbonation coming up. .6% ABV. You get a aroma on it. Yeah, the typical lager. The adjuncts, I do not know what they use, and it's probably rice. Good smelling beer. Well, with that said, give it a taste. That's good. That is good. It's a typical lager beer. Not too sweet. And they say kiss of the hops, just the kiss of the hops, Although I'm feeling a bit of bitterness on the sides of the tongue. I do not know what the IBUs are in this, and excuse me for slurping and gulping. And it is a good beer. So with that said, oh, someone wanted to see what the original, when you had a church key. So let me just move this aside. There is some cans here, and this is what they look like when the church keys are used. As you can see, this is the church key. We go like that, and one for taking the beer out, one for air to go in. And this is how they would do it. This is for the younger guys and gals out there that have never used the church key, believe it or not, because in the 60s, Schlitz had this top. You pulled it off. It came right off the whole top versus the push down like what Narragansett using, the beers are using now. But what happened is that when these were all taken off, a lot of the girls used to fold them over, put one on the other, and make a chain. And they were pretty long, some of the ones that I've seen. They used to do good jobs making the chains. So anyways, those are the tops of the cans. No further ado, let me get back to the beer. It's still good carbonation going up. It's a good beer, good tasting beer. It's light. What I mean by light is not a light beer. It doesn't have really what I consider a robust body to it, a full body, as you can see. Although it gives you a mouthfeel that does. That's a typical lager beer. So with that said, folks, Christmas is around the corner. Enjoy it with your family. If you're going to drink, drink responsibly. And all you kids and guys and gals that are not of age of drinking, save your body. Wait till you're old enough to drink. Because there will be plenty more Christmases and New Year's, Thanksgivings, and plenty of days of coming to party. So with that said, have a good day, folks. Merry Christmas. Ciao.